Hello, this is the Water Rat letting you know that the Wind in the Islands is brought to you by Glasgow, an art studio and farm from the Thousand Islands. Check them out at glasgow.com.
Welcome to another chapter of The Wind in the Islands by Scott Oderkirk. Chapter 4, River Captain.
The Mole and the Rat spent the morning rowing the skiff to Brockville, Ontario, with thoughts of an adventure on the steamer Brockville touring the Thousand Islands. It was Tuesday, although the friends didn't know it because to animals one day is the same as the next. They tied up the skiff, bought tickets, and made their way to the steamship dock. Waiting to board the ship, they spotted the captain strutting about with a set of charts, which he carried to make sure everyone knew he was the captain, rolled up under his wing, a pipe hanging loosely from his beak. "What kind of bird is the captain?" whispered the Mole. "Is he a river chicken?"
"Now, Mole,"
said the Rat, looking about to see if anyone had heard.
"you know the moorhens consider the term river chicken to be fighting words. Let's not make our arrival more eventful than need be."
"Sorry," said the Mole. "It is all just so new to me." In the Mole's defense, the captain was quite a sight, sporting exceptional plumage for a bird of his breeding, not all of it naturally occurring, thought many of the animals who knew him. The captain was shiny and colorful from his long pointy feet to the top of his dark head. He handled his steamship with the same aplomb as he carried himself. Each move was thought out and necessary, whether he was wetting his beak or running the rapids with 100 souls on board. This confidence caused his passengers to feel that everything was under control. His crew knew that sometimes this, like his feathers, was more of an illusion of substance. The Rat and the Mole handed over their tickets and walked the plank onto the steamship as the sun shone down upon them, and they anticipated a wonderful day on the river. They followed the rest of the first-class passengers to the upper deck, hoping to find seating with a view. "Where will we stop first?" asked the Mole.
"First stop will be Pools Resort," said the Rat, "and then the Island View House in Rockport."
"What's there?" asked the Mole.
"A nearby marina with a water pump, I hope," said the Rat. "The Toad asked me to get one for his speedboat."
"And then?" asked the Mole again.
"Around the Horn to the Thousand Islands Park for lunch," said the Rat.
"Rockport in Canada?" inquired the Mole a bit too loudly.
"Yes, Mole,"
said the Rat, trying to keep his composure. This was not the first time the subject had come up today. "And that is in another country, is it not?" questioned the Mole a bit louder. Rat then realized the Mole was trying to look as if he was not a country bumpkin, but was doing a rather bad job of it.
"Let's just enjoy the ride, Mole,"
said the Rat.
"What about some refreshments? A scone? Maybe a bit of tea?"
The orchestra began playing something upbeat, which caused the Mole to do a little dance as he made his way to a bench near the railing. The Rat didn't dance, but he enjoyed the music nonetheless. The Mole was rubbing his paw along the back of the bench when he noticed a nameplate which read "The Columbian" under a thick layer of paint. He pointed this out to the Rat. "I thought the steamer was called the Brockville," he said to the Rat.
"It is now, but it was built as the Columbian," answered the Rat.
"I didn't know boats changed their names," said the Mole.
"A new owner often means a new name,"
explained the Rat. The friends settled in for the ride and spent much of it being sociable. At one point, the captain mingled with the passengers during the trip and seemed to take a particular interest in the two of them. "When I'm not on my ship," said the captain after a while, "I spend my time at my home in Alexandria Bay." "Do you miss the ship during those times?" asked the Mole. "Not really," replied the captain. "My house kind of looks like a ship on the inside and is filled with things from ships."
"That must be something to see,"
said the Rat, being polite. "The Brockville is stopping in the bay, as we call it," said the captain. "The crew has to do a little maintenance on the steamer before we can continue. Would you like to take a walk over and tour my home?" "We'd love it," said the friends together. "I'll meet you on the dock then," said the captain. It was well known to regular passengers of the Brockville that the captain was particularly proud of his home's unique construction and ship-themed decor. Many passengers had received the same invitation, but the two friends didn't know this, and thus felt special. The captain led them up Church Street to a sidewalk bordered on both sides with a heavy rope railing. The front door, which was finished bright, much like the woodwork on a ship, was in the center of the porch. The door knocker was a bronze anchor, and there was a round porthole in the center filled with a stained glass window, painted like a river scene. When the door opened, it was like walking into what the friends imagined the inside of a yacht must look like. "Did you build all of this?" asked the mole. "It was built by George Bolt for the head captain of his fleet," said the captain. "But then Mr. Bolt decided he needed a captain closer at hand and moved him to Wellesley Island near his boathouse. I was lucky to obtain the property." "Mr. Bolt is the man who built the castle we saw from the dock?" asked the mole. "I think that if you stand anywhere in the bay you can't help but see something that Mr. Bolt had built," said the captain with certainty. "Sometimes it seems like he placed them hubble to shuff, but I'm sure there is a method to the madness. Anyway, he certainly keeps the stonemasons busy."
"Is that a ship on the bottle I see on the mantel?"
asked the rat, bringing the conversation back to the house. "That is a ship on a bottle," explained the captain. "It was made for me by a glass artist who works just above Oak Point, slightly downriver from Crossover Island, on the American side. He paints the image on and then fires it in a kiln to make it stick. It is on the back of the bottle, so you must look through the bottle to see it, giving the impression that it is in the bottle. This one is of the Toronto, a ship I hope to captain some day. Now, we must get back to the Brockville. Don't want it leaving without us." The rat was surprised to hear the captain laugh quietly at his own joke. Maybe he wasn't so stuffy after all. In fact, the rat was taking a liking to him.
"Yes, the passengers will have our guts for garters if they think it's our fault,"
said the rat. "No doubt," added the mole. "You'll join me in the wheelhouse, I expect?" asked the captain.
Yes,
they both replied in unison. The Brockville steamed away from Alexandria Bay, leaving a cloud of smoke in its wake. The captain kept a running commentary on the river as the Brockville headed downriver, passing Ironsides Island, then Chambeau Island, and finally to Chippewa Bay.
"Now we're back in my neck of the river,"
said the rat. "We're going to make a stop at Cedar Island," said the captain. "Then back to Brockville?" asked the mole, needing no answer, and none was given. Just as the Brockville was made fast to the dock on Cedar Island, they heard a loud boat making its way through the cut next to Wyandotte Island. Soon it was in sight, with a heavy spray coming on each side of the small boat. They knew that the toad was aware of their plans today, and they hoped it wasn't him. Hope was not fulfilled, though, as it was the toad. The two friends were appalled to recognize him in his boating hat and his scarf trailing behind him in the wind. The toad was going way too fast and coming way too close as he sprang inside the ship. Thankfully, the roar of his motor drowned out the sound of the toad's voice as he called, "Hello, rat!" The wake rocked the Brockville just enough to send a freshly poured glass of red wine spilling onto the lap of a woman wearing a silk dress. "Who is that fool?" exclaimed the captain. The rat looked at the mole, and the mole looked at the rat.
"I think he said something about his throttle being stuck,"
said the rat, not really answering the question. "Bloody dangerous," said the captain. "I'll get to the bottom of it, and he'll be sorry he ever sat his bloated behind on a boat seat. Did you see him? He looked like a toad, or maybe a frog." But it was time to set off for the last leg of the trip, saving the friends from any more embarrassing questions. Fortunately, the toad didn't head back to Dark Island, which would have helped the captain identify him. The friends breathed a sigh of relief when they passed Blind Bay. They were almost to Oak Point. The captain began his commentary again. "If you look to the right," he said, "you can see the studio of the artist that made the ship on a bottle. Scott lives there with his wife Mary Alice on a small farm with goats and chickens and such. At night you can see the wonderful colors of the stained glass all lit up from here." "Is the artist a goat?" asked the mole. "No, they keep goats and chickens, and bees, I think. Domesticated, you know," said the captain.
"Yes,
"Oh, we know," said the two together, remembering the chickens at the farm. The Brockville entered the Narrows, which told everyone that the circle of their trip was almost complete. The rat and the mole made sure that they told the captain how much they enjoyed their trip and his extra attention. When they were leaving the steamer, the mole thought he saw a friend. "Ratty," said the mole, "isn't that the otter over there by that small striped tent?"
"I believe it is,"
answered the rat.
"What do you think he's doing?"
"Let's find out," said the mole, heading off in that direction. The two walked right up to the otter, who looked confused.
"Hello, Otter,"
said the rat.
"What brings you to Brockville?"
"The river brought me here," said the otter. "But I never thought I'd end up hearing something so strange. I was walking by this tent when it set my whiskers to vibrating, so I went in. There's an old woman in this tent, looking at a large marble who says she can tell your future. I wasn't really interested except that I would like to know when my next tasty crayfish is coming along. But do you know what she told me? She said that someday in the future there would be otters living in the bottom of a really tall building right here in Brockville. Can you imagine? She said the building would be much taller than trees or church steeples reaching right into the sky above the fog. Poppycock, I say. Do you want to ride back with us in the skiff? Asked the mole. So kind of you to offer, but I think I'll spend a couple of days eating my fill in the Narrows just upriver, said the otter. I think I hear a frog. And he was gone. The rat headed the skiff across the river toward Old Man Island and noticed that he was not the only boat going in that direction. Are we being followed? Asked the mole.
I don't think so,
said the rat.
but there must be some big doings on the island. Look at all of the people around the hotel. There seem to be boats headed there from both shores.
Soon the skiff was overtaken by several boats which were in much more of a hurry than the two friends were. Look, exclaimed the mole. The men have crates on their boats with roosters inside. Angry-looking roosters.
Those roosters like to fight,
said the rat.
Or maybe they just have to fight. Anyway, I don't think this is something that the likes of us should get involved in. Next stop, Chippewa Bay.
After that, the trip was calm and uneventful. It was just dusk as they passed the stained glass of the artist, and the lights were on, so they were treated to a show.
What a way to end a perfect day,
said the rat quietly. He didn't think the mole had heard him and thought he may have fallen asleep, but then the mole began softly. Through common waves we often go, while new friends of the river show the beauty that follows us to and fro, the end of which in this life we'll never know. The rat knew that no response was needed, so he continued rowing, trying not to disturb the water as it propelled them